Hello, football tribers. Welcome back to yet another edition of the Premier League preview ahead of match day 5. Welcome back from all that midweek action. I hope you did enjoy it. I did enjoy it despite some not so good results. That is from some of our big teams in Manchester City in their draw against Inter Milan, while Arsenal did have a goalless draw against Atlanta. Nonetheless, Bayern Munich did steal the show with their 9-2 victory against Dinamo Zagreb, while Real Madrid had to grind it out against Stuttgart in that 3-1 victory. Just like Liverpool beat up against AC Milan by 3-1, despite going a goal down earlier on in the game. Of course, two brilliant headers in there from Ibrahim Konate and Virgil van Dijk, not to mention Dominic Szoboszlai completing the victory there. Barcelona were 2-1 losers against AC Monaco in a game in which they suffered an early red card. That is, I think, to Eric Garcia. So, Aston Villa 3-0 winners against Young Boys. Dortmund winning it late against Club Brugge by 2-0, I think. So many beautiful results. It was really, really wonderful. Atletico Madrid beating up against RB Leipzig, I think by 2-1 there. So it has been a brilliant way to kickstart the new format of the UEFA Champions League, for which Bayern Munich do lead that table. Celtic, of course, another high-scoring team in the course of the week. But like I did say, our focus is going to be back in the Premier League for match day 5, where things do kick off at the London Stadium when West Ham host Chelsea in that London derby. So here is a run of the fixtures that will be coming your way on match day 5. We do have 8 fixtures on Saturday and just 2 fixtures for Sunday. Not to mention, there's no game on Monday night football because midweek some teams are going to be playing in the Carabao Cup, while others will be having commitments in the Europa League and the UEFA Conference League respectively. So, like I said, at 2:30 p.m. that's East African time, West Ham do host Chelsea, while at 5 p.m. Aston Villa will be up against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Newcastle will be away to Fulham, that's at Craven Cottage, still 5 p.m. kickoff time, while Leicester, who are yet to find their first win of the season, will be up against a pointless Everton at the King Power Stadium. Then Liverpool will host Bournemouth at 5 p.m., while Tottenham Hotspurs will also be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Brentford, still at 5 p.m. And then in the late kickoff of Saturday will be between Crystal Palace and Manchester United. The last time Manchester United made the trip to Selhurst Park, it was a difficult result or a bitter pill for the Red Devils to swallow. Was it a 4-0 thumping in there? So anyway, and then on Super Sunday, we'll have Brighton up against Nottingham Forest. That is at 4 p.m. sharp, while Manchester City will host Arsenal in the biggest game of the weekend. And that game is going to be our focus for this preview. We'll review other fixtures where I will give you some of my predictions, but Manchester City versus Arsenal is going to be our primary fixture for this particular review. So let's get it all started. For the last 2 seasons, Arsenal have been the team that have been giving Manchester City a run for their money. In the 2022-2023 Premier League season, they finished 5 points behind Manchester City in second place, while last season they finished again second, just 2 points behind Manchester City. That's at 89 points. Whereas there's been improvement for Mikel Arteta's tenure at Arsenal, silverware is something that continues to elude them. And tomorrow they do travel to the Etihad Stadium, knowing that those remarks are still fresh in their memory. Those remarks from Rodri, who said that the difference between them and Arsenal, and as to why they were able to win their 4th straight Premier League title, is because when Arsenal traveled to the Etihad Stadium, they played to draw the game. They didn't play to win. Well, those comments should still be fresh in the minds of some of these Arsenal players who made the trip to the Etihad Stadium last season in that goalless draw. So they do go to Manchester City a stadium where they've not won in the era of Pep Guardiola. But last season was the start, perhaps, of a positive turn for Mikel Arteta's side, because they managed to beat up against Manchester City in the Community Shield. That is the season's curtain raiser. That was in a penalty shootout that preceded a 1-1 draw at Wembley Stadium. So I think it was 5-4 there. Leandro Trossard was the scorer for a deflected ball. I think it deflected by Manela Kanji to level that particular game late on into added time. And then at the Emirates Stadium, Arsenal did beat up against Manchester City by 1-0. That goal, again, coming late in the game, I think around the 84th or 86th minute, there about. That strike from Gabriel Martinelli, who was scoring his first goal in 12 appearances at the time. The ball, of course, was deflected by Nathan Aki, who is, by the way, a doubt for this particular fixture through injury, just as much as Kevin De Bruyne and Oscar Bob, who are all out injured. But that doesn't mean that without those players, Manchester City are any less competitive, as we'll be looking at the squad. As we go into this fixture, Gabriel Martinelli, I think he's now played about 14 games without seeing the back of the net. He's lacked that sharpness. He's not yet really got it. The last time he scored, to the best of my recollection, was against Liverpool in that 3-1 victory. For those of you that remember, when Virgil van Dijk and Alson Ramsey-Baker, who by the way is also a doubt for their fixture this weekend against Bournemouth, had a miscommunication and they fumbled that ball and he scored into an empty net. So Gabriel Martinelli will need to be sharper than he has ever been if Arsenal are to have any chance in this particular fixture. The last 5 meetings between the sides, of course, Manchester City take the lion's share, having won 3 out of the 5 fixtures, while Arsenal have won once and a draw. Now, those 2 results for the Gunners did come last season. But last season but one, when Arsenal travelled to the Etihad Stadium, they did lose by 4-1. Braut Erling Haaland scoring in that particular fixture, while Kevin De Bruyne scored a brace. For those of you that remember, one being a Takahiro Tomiyasu loose ball that De Bruyne, sort of pounced on and scored that. The other on target was John Stones, while the only consolation for the Gunners was from their former defender in Rob Holding, who has since left the club to join Crystal Palace, where he has not thrived at all. But that is besides the point. In the same season, Manchester City had beaten Arsenal at the Emirates Stadium by 3-1. So, but last season, Arsenal managed to keep 2 clean sheets into fixtures of the Premier League and only conceded in the Community Shield fixture. So that tells you how defensively solid Arsenal were in this particular fixture. If anything, Mikel Arteta has learned from his master in Pep Guardiola that you can't concede ball possession and you can't concede that fancy game that we all enjoy to watch, and then win yourself the result. Last season, they managed to frustrate Manchester City at the Etihad Stadium, limited their opportunities, just like they had done at the Emirates Stadium, where literally Braut Erling Haaland was pocketed by both William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes. They did have a very physical tussle in the last outing at the Emirates Stadium, and they went on to have an engagement in the aftermath of that particular fixture. Nonetheless, here are the facts ahead of this one. So, both teams do come into this fixture on the back of goalless draws in the UEFA Champions League, like I had mentioned earlier on in the preamble of this particular preview. But back in the Premier League, both sides are still unbeaten. However, Manchester City are still perfect, 4 wins out of 4, while Arsenal have recorded 3 wins out of 4 with 1 draw. Their draw coming up against Brighton and Hove Albion, while the victories did come against Wolverhampton Wanderers and Aston Villa, as well as against Spurs in that London derby last weekend. Of course, Gabriel Guimaraes scoring the only goal of that particular fixture. On the side of Manchester City, like we said, they are still perfect this season, having beaten up against Chelsea, Ipswich Town, West Ham United, and Brentford to amass all the 12 points from the 4 games. Now, who are the people to watch in this particular fixture? Of course, on the side of Manchester City, we cannot say anything about this team without mentioning Braut Haaland, who has so far scored 9 goals in 4 Premier League games. No player has ever done that in the history of Premier League football, and probably league football as far as English football is concerned. He has 2 hat-tricks to his name, one against West Ham in that 3-1 victory, and the other in their 4-1 victory against Ipswich Town. And then he did score a goal against Chelsea, while he scored a brace against Brentford last weekend as they beat them by 2-1. So Braut Haaland is the man to watch for this particular fixture if you're on the Arsenal side. It goes without saying that Manchester City have scored 11 goals this season so far in the Premier League, and 9 of those have been scored by Braut Haaland. So that's how important he is a player to this Manchester City side, and nobody knows that more than Pep Guardiola, who has levied all the praises that he deserves to the Norwegians' name. The other player to look out for is, of course, Ederson Moraes, the goalkeeper. Very brilliant with his feet, but also his hands are quite deft. Probably not as deft as those of David Raya, as we may see in the near future, but he is quite deft. He's got quite skillful hands. So he did provide an assist last weekend with that long pass that he played to Braut Haaland, making it his first this season and the 4th in his Premier League career. So he's capable of providing the assists should Manchester City feel frustrated playing out of the back, playing out in the midfield. They can have that long ball from the goalkeeper to their striker and then get a goal. So then the other player is Rodri. Rodri in that midfield is a monster. He's a monster. He wins duels, oftentimes smartly. He's very good at passing the ball. He's very good at carrying that ball. He knows how to pop into the final third a bit, and he does score goals when given the opportunity. Oftentimes, long-range thunderbolts from outside the area there. So Arsenal must be wary of Rodri. Now, of course, the other player I would love to mention is Kevin De Bruyne, but like I did mention, he's a doubtful for this particular fixture. But let's hope, let's go on the positive side and assume that maybe he can pass the late fitness test and make this particular fixture. Would be another player for concern. But overall, all Manchester City players can cause you problems if you're an Arsenal side. So while those are the pivotal players for me to highlight, do believe that any other player in this Manchester City squad is capable of hurting you. In midweek against Inter Milan, he played a back 3 of Luis Diaz and then Manela Kanji and Joško Vardiol. Joško Vardiol, at the tail end of last season, he was scoring some brilliant goals. So anyway, in this particular fixture, I do expect Kyle Walker to come back in a back 4, whichever he chooses. Of course, like we did say, Nathan Ake is absent for this particular one, but they are not short of options because Vardiol is available, John Stones is available. He didn't start in that game against Inter Milan. When you come to their midfield, Mateo Kovacic was a rested player in midweek. He didn't start. Ilkay Gundogan came off the bench. Matthias Nunes in there. Of course, Rodri, Leco Lewis, who started that particular fixture. So they do have the tools. Of course, Jeremy Doku, Phil Foden, I think came off the bench. Bernardo Silva in there. All these are players that are capable of hurting this Arsenal side. So Arsenal must be worried. On the other side, Manchester City will worry of some of these players. Of course, they will feel delighted. Perhaps they'll have to hide that Martin Odegaard is absent in this particular fixture. Martin Odegaard is one of the most important players for this Arsenal side. He does create, loads of their chances. He does dictate their play in midfield. He leads their secondary press in the forward front every time they lose the ball, along with the striker, oftentimes Kai Havertz in recent times, as we've seen. So that's the player that they are missing out through an ankle injury for a period that has not been stated. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta does hope that he hopes that it won't be 4 months, but it sure as well be quite a few number of weeks before we see the Norwegian back into action for the Gunners. And not to mention, they will also be without their summer signing in Mikel Merino. Zinchenko is a doubt for this particular fixture through a calf injury, while Takahiro Tomiyasu and Kieran Tierney are the others on their sick bay. So they are not available for this particular fixture. So who are the players to look at? David Raya in goal. He has had 2 double saves in this particular season, one against Aston Villa in the Premier League and one in the UEFA Champions League, as he saved that penalty on Thursday night. He saved the penalty, and then the rebound of the penalty, he did save that one, and he won himself all the praises that have been going his way in the media. So, and then William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes, a pretty solid partnership in that backline that we do not expect to change. At left back, of course, Jurriën Timber there, slotting in there. Ben White at right back. That's the expectation. If there's any swap, it could be Carafiori for Jurriën Timber, and then of course the midfield, they will be welcoming back Declan Rice, who by the way featured in the Champions League game, but he did miss last weekend's London derby through a red card, so he does return for this particular fixture to perhaps play alongside Thomas Partey in that midfield. Then, who plays ahead of them in completing that midfield 3? Is it Leandro Trossard? Is it Kai Havertz? Again, we'll wait to see who Mikel Arteta's choice will be. And then, of course, former Man City player Gabriel Jesus is available to play in that particular fixture. Did make a start in the UEFA Champions League. Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli are all available. Not to mention Raheem Sterling, who is on loan from Chelsea to Arsenal, a former Man City player. So, do Arsenal have the players that can win a game at the Etihad Stadium? Definitely yes. But without Martin Odegaard, their chances, the chances they create are quite very minimal. And we did see that against Atlanta. They created very few chances. Of course, Gabriel Martinelli being a culprit in failing to bury any of those few chances. So, that is the fixture for you. That is the story about it. Do let me know what your thoughts are. Who do you think is going to win? What the result you think will be? My gut feeling says Manchester City definitely have the edge. Why? First of all, they are at home. They've beaten Arsenal at home before, and I do think my gut feeling tells me Manchester City is going to win this one. But, and it's a big but. Chances are it may end in a draw. Not a goalless draw this time round, though. I do get the feeling it could be a 1-1 draw or a 2-1 victory for Man City. I've yet to make the final decision, but therein, that is my thought for this particular fixture. Do let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. So, moving on to other fixtures and what our thoughts are on those particular fixtures. For those ones, allow me to keep it short and just highlight a few facts here and there, and then give you my predictions as we go. West Ham up against Chelsea. West Ham are yet to find their footing. Julian Lopetegui is still trying to figure out what his best starting 11 is at that West Ham side, and yet Chelsea are in decent form by the way. They've lost one game this season, 1-2, and drawn the other. The draw coming against Crystal Palace, while the victories did come against Bournemouth, in a game that I thought Bournemouth deserved something out of that game, and the 6-2 victory against Wolverhampton Wanderers. They do face West Ham in the early kickoff, usually troublesome fixture. They do have an engagement in the UEFA Conference League midway next week. Of course, Enzo Maresca is equally still trying to figure out what his best starting 11 is. But for this particular fixture, you do think that Chelsea have the edge over West Ham. But knowing that it is a London derby, I'm going for a draw in this particular fixture, perhaps a 2-2 draw for this one. And then Aston Villa up against Wolverhampton Wanderers at Villa Park. Wolverhampton Wanderers have not had the start to the Premier League that they would have wanted this season. The last fixture being a 2-1 loss to Newcastle, while Aston Villa were busy winning 3-2 against Everton on the other side, coming from 2 goals down to win it 3-2 John Duran there on the score sheet. He did score a brilliant goal against Young Boys, but it was ruled out there by VAR. Anyways, I do think Aston Villa will win this particular fixture by probably 3-1 or 2-1 there. Fulham up against Newcastle. Newcastle very decent side there in the top 3 already. They are amassing their points already. They do travel to a stubborn Fulham side, who I think could equally force them into a draw there. Then Leicester City versus Everton. Both sides are yet to win a Premier League game this season. Leicester City do have 2 points from which they have, of course, gathered 2 draws in there. Their last being a 2-2 draw against Crystal Palace. I did see Steve Cooper there still, complaining about a decision that was given to Crystal Palace. I think he cites a goal there that should have been ruled for offside. So, for this particular fixture, I'm expecting a draw. I do think that Everton may have learned a lesson or 2 in their past experiences. They can go for it against Leicester City, but they will be worried that they are conceding way too many on the other side, and Leicester City are not strangers to scoring. So going for a draw on this particular one. And then Liverpool up against Bournemouth. Of course, they did bounce back to winning ways after their weekend slump, losing a 0-0 against Nottingham Forest. They did beat AC Milan by 3-1, like I had mentioned earlier in the preamble of this particular review. Arne Slot will present a very, very good side. Of course, they will be at home. They will be worried that even last weekend they did lose at home, but I do not think Bournemouth will edge them. So I'm going for a Liverpool win in this particular fixture. Southampton are yet to win a game this season. They are still pointless so far out of the 4 fixtures, and they do face fellow new side or newly promoted side in Ipswich Town. I'm going for a draw for this one. Kian McKenna is yet to figure out things out in the Premier League, so I'm going for a draw in this one. And then Tottenham Hotspurs up against Brentford. Brentford did give Manchester City a run for their money last weekend, but they were not able to get a result there as they lost by 2-1. Johan Visa suffering an ankle injury in that particular fixture, and it is reported that he could spend up to 2 months on the sidelines. But so they will have to look to Brian Mbeumo for goals in that forward line. Of course, we all know they lost Ivan Toney in the summer transfer window. He went on to the Saudi Pro League. So clearly, their threat going forward does shrink a bit, but do not take anything away from Thomas Frank's side. Nonetheless, given the amount of pressure that Ange Postecoglou does find himself under, he did field a very, very much changed side in midweek in the Carabao Cup as they won it late by 2-1 to advance to the next stage, I think to the 4th round of the Carabao Cup. So in the Premier League, things have not yet clicked for him. He did, of course, lose last weekend to their rivals Arsenal there, and I do think he will be desperate. He will be pushing his boys for a result in this one. Brian Mbeumo, I think, has scored on his last 2 visits to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So I'm going for a 2-1 for Tottenham there. Tottenham to win this particular fixture. And then Crystal Palace versus Manchester United. At the tail end of last season, everything was happening right for Oliver Glasner. Crystal Palace were flying high. Of course, since then, they've lost some of their key players, especially Mike Olise. So they were able to keep a hold of Eberechi Eze, sign Eddie Nketiah from Arsenal. Of course, they managed to keep a hold of Maguire there, Joan Felipe Mateta. They did lose Jordan Ayew to Leicester City, but no pun intended. This season, things have not yet clicked for them. Sincerely speaking, I think they have 2 points after 2 draws and 2 losses. I think one against Brentford, one of those, and the other against West Ham. Manchester United on the other side are doing better in comparison to Crystal Palace. They've recorded 2 victories and 2 losses. Crystal Palace did beat Manchester United by 4-0 last season at Selhurst Park, but also beat them at Old Trafford by 0-0. So those memories are still fresh in Erik ten Hag's memory, and he did say that they are in a different position this time around as compared to where they were last season when they traveled to Selhurst Park. So while we may want to give all the credit to Selhurst Park in this particular home fixture, I do think it is a different Manchester United that will be traveling to Selhurst Park. Manela Gate was given his full debut in the Carabao Cup as Manchester United beat up against Barnsley by 7-0. So they're in pretty high spirits. 2 wins in a row, 2 clean sheets. So they will be very, very confident going into this particular fixture. Not to mention that they are welcoming back Rasmus Højlund as well as Mason Mount from injury. So those players will be available for selection. They may not start, but they will be available for selection. Mazzarri, there will be, I expect him to feature, of course, Diego Dalot, Matthias de Ligt in that centre back alongside Lisandro Martinez with Andre Onana in goal. Christian Eriksen did start in midfield the last fixture alongside Kobe Mainoo. Yes, in their 3-0 victory against Southampton. So in midfield there could be some changes, but again, we'll wait to see what Erik ten Hag does feel. Marcus Rashford scored 3 goals in 2 games, a brace against Barnsley and 1 goal against Southampton. So he's pretty gaining back his confidence there. He'll be coming into this particular fixture feeling good about himself, just as much as Alejandro Garnacho, who bagged the brace against Barnsley, as well as Christian Eriksen himself, brace there for him. So Joshua Zirkzee will be available to lead the lines, while on the other side, of course, you do look at Crystal Palace and Ebelechi Eze, Eddie Nketiah, Joan Felipe Mateta. These are the players they are looking at to hurt this Manchester United side. Mark Guehi to command that defense. Again, we'll wait to see what Oliver Glasner does field, but for me, my prediction is a victory for Manchester United. Anyways, that's it from me for now. As far as Premier League's Matchday 5 preview is concerned, do let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. Do not forget to kindly subscribe, comment, share, and so that we can continue to grow. Otherwise, have a blessed weekend, and I'll see you next time.